The human was captured, but the princess wouldn't let him die. Commander Jalen stared at the glowing horizon of Veloria, a planet renowned throughout the Zoreth galaxy for its beauty and danger alike. He had traveled thousands of light years from Earth, a human among alien worlds, exploring uncharted systems with courage and curiosity that had earned him both admiration and caution. Veloria was supposed to be just another diplomatic stop, a place to exchange knowledge and resources. But even as his sleek exploration vessel glided toward the planet's atmosphere, an uneasy feeling stirred in his chest. Jalen had been trained for surprises, but nothing could have prepared him for the sudden ambush. Out of the deep purple clouds of the Velorian upper atmosphere, shadowy ships appeared, moving with precision that suggested premeditation. Laser pulses streaked through the sky, narrowly missing his vessel. The human pilot reacted instantly, twisting his ship with the instinctive grace of someone who had lived his life in constant danger. Yet, for all his skill, he was outnumbered. A sudden, sharp impact rocked his ship, sending him tumbling into the control panel. Warning alarms screamed. Jalen gritted his teeth, trying to steady the ship. The alien attackers moved like predators, circling and pressing their advantage. With a final pulse of energy, a beam struck his engine, and the vessel spiraled out of control, plunging toward the planet below. Jalen barely managed a controlled crash landing on the rocky plains of Veloria. The heat and dust of the crash filled his lungs as he emerged from the wreckage, scanning the horizon. Dark figures were approaching, moving with deliberate precision. He recognized them immediately, mercenaries, hired by a faction that thrived on capturing rare beings for ransom or experimentation. And humans were considered a rare commodity indeed. Before he could react, they surrounded him. Their leader, a towering alien with multiple eyes and a cruel grin, signaled his team. Jalen fought, using his strength and agility to resist, but he was overwhelmed. Metal restraints clamped around his wrists and ankles, and he was dragged toward their hovering ship. Despite the situation, Jalen's mind worked like lightning. He observed the alien patterns, the way they moved, the rhythm of their patrols. He knew that survival would demand more than brute strength. It would require patience, intelligence, and a little bit of luck. Meanwhile, high above the city of Draxon, in the glittering palace of Veloria, Princess Liara paced her private chambers. She had been studying galactic reports when a messenger arrived, his expression grim. "Your Highness, a human explorer has been captured near the outskirts of Draxon. The mercenaries are known for never releasing their prisoners." Liara's heart raced. Humans were rare in the galaxy, and she had always found them fascinating. She had grown up reading about their courage, their ingenuity, and their ability to adapt in ways that many alien species could not. The idea that one of them could be in danger, trapped and alone, was unbearable. Without hesitation, she rose, her long robes flowing behind her, and called for her closest advisors. "This cannot wait," she said firmly. "If he is a human, he must be rescued. Make preparations immediately." Her advisors exchanged nervous glances. Veloria had laws strict and ancient, and no princess had ever defied them for a foreigner before. "Your Highness, the mercenaries operate beyond our jurisdiction. Any action could spark conflict," one advisor warned. Liara's eyes blazed with determination. "I am the Princess of Veloria. If the law fails to protect an innocent life, then I will act. We will find him and we will bring him home." She began gathering intelligence herself, studying the city's maps and the patrol routes of the mercenary forces. She learned their habits, their schedules, and the ways they exploited the gaps in the city's defenses. Every night, she pored over reports of the mercenaries' past raids, taking notes and marking locations where prisoners had been held. Her determination was unwavering, and with each passing hour her plan became clearer. Inside the prison, Jalen was placed in a small, dimly lit cell. The walls were cold metal, and the air smelled of oil and dust. He inspected the room carefully, noting the security cameras, the patterns of the guards, and the placement of the locks. Even in captivity, he refused to give up hope. Humans had a history of overcoming impossible odds, and he was determined to live up to that legacy. Time passed slowly. Each hour was a test of patience and observation. Jalen learned to anticipate the guards' movements, memorizing when they would check on him and when the hallways would be empty. He whispered quietly to himself, practicing the small maneuvers he would need if an opportunity arose. Every detail mattered, every pattern, every sound, every shadow. Outside the prison, Liara's preparations continued. She donned a disguise, simple armor and the insignia of a low-ranking soldier, concealing her identity as the princess. Her heart pounded as she slipped through the corridors of the palace undetected, moving toward the lower sectors of Draxon, where the mercenaries were based. Every step was dangerous, every shadow a potential threat, yet her resolve did not waver. Her plan was not reckless. She created subtle diversions, disabling lights, cutting communication lines, and releasing minor prisoners in ways that would confuse the mercenaries without causing harm. Each move required precision, intelligence, and courage. She thought of Jalen with every action, imagining the fear he must be feeling and the strength he must summon to endure it. Her determination was fueled by a belief that no life, human or otherwise, should be left to suffer when it could be saved. In his cell, Jalen noticed the small signs of unusual activity. Guards were distracted, alarms occasionally malfunctioned, and strange noises echoed through the halls. He realized someone was trying to help him, though he did not yet know who. This small hope lifted his spirits. Humans were not alone in the galaxy, and sometimes allies came in unexpected forms. Night fell over Draxon, the city lights casting long shadows across the streets. Liara moved like a ghost, slipping past patrols and security checkpoints with careful precision. She avoided direct confrontations, relying on her intelligence and agility rather than brute force. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders, but she welcomed it. She had trained for leadership, for making difficult decisions, and now she was tested in the most personal way imaginable. As she advanced deeper into the mercenary territory, she encountered unexpected obstacles. Guards who were more alert, security systems more sophisticated than she anticipated, and corridors that seemed designed to trap the unwary. Each challenge required creative thinking. She used mirrors to reflect light and confuse sensors, created noise diversions using small devices, and memorized every turn and passage. Her understanding of strategy, combined with human-like ingenuity, allowed her to navigate the dangers that could have easily ended a less prepared rescuer's mission. Back in his cell, Jalen waited. Every instinct screamed at him to act, but he restrained himself, knowing that patience was his ally. He thought of the human explorers who had survived impossible circumstances through wit and courage. He told himself he would do the same. Somewhere out there, someone was risking everything for him, and that thought, fragile and bright, kept his mind sharp and his body ready. Hours passed like days. Liara reached the outer sectors of the mercenary stronghold, carefully marking safe routes and weak points. She paused to catch her breath, her mind racing with possibilities and contingencies. She knew that the moment of rescue would require perfect timing, perfect coordination, and perfect courage. She welcomed the challenge. Humans had shown her that courage was not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. Finally, as dawn broke over the jagged landscape of Draxon, Liara paused outside the cell block. She studied the patterns one last time, memorizing the guards, routines, and the timing of the patrols. Inside, Jalen remained alert, ready for the first sign of opportunity. Neither knew exactly what would happen next, but both were prepared to face whatever danger came their way. For Jalen, hope had returned, fragile but persistent. For Liara, determination burned brighter than ever. Across the cold metal walls of the prison, across the patrols and alarms, a silent promise had been made. No human would be left to die, not if she could prevent it. And so, as the first light of Veloria touched the horizon, the stage was set. The captured human and the determined princess were on the brink of a journey that would test courage, intelligence, and loyalty beyond measure. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if bravery and cleverness could triumph over darkness and cruelty. Princess Liara moved quietly through the lower sectors of Draxon, her breathing controlled and steady despite the tension that gripped her. The corridors were dimly lit, with shadows stretching long across the walls, hiding dangers she could sense but not yet see. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. Though she was trained in diplomacy and strategy, this was her first mission of such personal risk. Yet nothing, no law, no danger, no warning, could stop her from rescuing the human who had been captured. She had spent the night memorizing patrol schedules, noting every guard rotation, every gap in the security systems. The mercenaries were skilled, ruthless, and unpredictable, but Liara trusted her knowledge, her instincts, and her determination. Her fingers brushed against the small energy blade she had hidden at her side, a weapon of precision she intended to use only if absolutely necessary. Violence was not her first choice. Cleverness and strategy had always served her best. Meanwhile, inside the prison, Jalen had grown accustomed to the rhythms of captivity. He had observed the guards' patterns, noting even the smallest deviations in their behavior. He tested the locks on his cell quietly, examining the metal for weaknesses. Though the restraints were sophisticated, he knew that patience and observation could reveal an opportunity. He also noticed subtle disturbances in the prison, small sounds that were out of place, shadows that lingered just a moment too long. Someone was moving carefully, deliberately, in a way that suggested intent. Liara paused in a narrow hallway and listened. She could hear the distant hum of energy barriers and the faint clatter of mercenary boots on metal floors. Her heart pounded, but she did not falter. Every moment spent hesitating was a moment Jalen remained in danger. She adjusted her path, avoiding a security drone that hovered silently in the corridor. Its sensors scanned the area in a predictable rhythm, and she used the shadows to stay unseen. Her plan was subtle but effective. She had disabled communications lines, ensuring that the mercenary guards could not call for reinforcements easily. She had created minor distractions in other parts of the facility, freeing prisoners quietly and ensuring chaos that did not harm anyone but drew attention away from her true objective. Every detail mattered, every choice could mean life or death. She reminded herself that this was not just about strategy. It was about compassion, about courage, about proving that one individual could challenge cruelty without giving in to fear. Jalen sensed the change in the prison's atmosphere before he saw anything. Guards were distracted, moving with less confidence, their focus broken by disturbances outside his cell. He crouched low, preparing for any chance to act. His mind worked quickly, running through every possible escape scenario he had practiced over countless simulations on distant human training stations. Even in the direst circumstances, humans adapted. That knowledge gave him calm, focus, and readiness. Liara approached the cell block from a narrow maintenance passage she had discovered on her map. It was old and little used, with rusted walls and flickering lights, but it provided access that was unseen by most. She knelt by the small access panel leading into the security system, her fingers moving with practiced precision. With a few adjustments, she temporarily disabled the cameras and energy locks on Jalen's cell, creating a window of opportunity that would last only minutes. Inside the cell, Jalen heard the subtle click of the locks and the faint sound of movement outside the door. His instincts told him to be ready, and his eyes scanned the shadows. When the door slid open silently, revealing a figure in the dim light, he froze for only a moment before recognizing the determination in her eyes. It was the person he had sensed all along, a mysterious ally who had risked everything to reach him. Liara stepped into the cell, her hand extended in a gesture of reassurance. "I'm here to get you out," she whispered, her voice steady despite the danger around them. "You need to move quickly and you must trust me." Jalen nodded, still cautious but recognizing the sincerity and skill in her approach. He rose, his body coiled with readiness, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they slipped through the corridors, moving as shadows among shadows. Liara led, guiding him past patrols, past security checkpoints, and past traps designed to catch the unwary. Every decision she made was precise, every action measured. As they moved deeper into the facility, they encountered their first real challenge, a heavily guarded chamber containing a high-security energy barrier. The barrier pulsed with a faint blue glow, and Jalen could see the control panel on the far side, manned by a vigilant guard. Liara's mind raced. Direct confrontation would be too dangerous. Instead, she used a small device she had hidden in her cloak, emitting a low-frequency signal that interfered with the barrier's sensors just long enough to slip through. Jalen followed her lead, marveling at her ingenuity. Humans were often underestimated, and yet here was a Valorian princess who had combined human-style cleverness with her own knowledge and skill. Together they moved as one, blending courage and intelligence in a way that seemed unstoppable. Their progress was not without tension. Every step was measured, every shadow a potential threat. Jalen noticed the subtle signs that the mercenaries were beginning to suspect something: a missing patrol, a delayed response, a faint echo of alarm in the distance. Liara's brow was furrowed, her focus absolute. "We must move faster," she said softly. "They will notice soon." They reached a series of tunnels beneath the prison, designed for maintenance but seldom used. Liara guided Jalen through narrow passages, low ceilings, and twisting corridors, relying on her memory of the maps and the observations she had made over the past night. Each turn brought them closer to freedom, yet closer to danger as well. In one corridor, a patrol appeared unexpectedly. Liara froze, signaling Jalen to do the same. The two of them pressed against the wall, holding their breath as the aliens passed mere inches away. Jalen's heart pounded, but he remained silent, relying on the training he had endured for situations exactly like this. The patrol moved on, unaware of their presence, and Liara exhaled softly, urging Jalen forward. Finally, they emerged in a larger chamber, a central hub that connected to the outer sectors of Draxon. Here, the real danger began. Guards patrolled with renewed vigilance, and security drones hovered in a slow, methodical pattern. Liara assessed the situation carefully, calculating the timing needed to cross the chamber undetected. She whispered instructions to Jalen, detailing precise movements, when to pause and when to run. Jalen followed her directions perfectly, his respect for the princess growing with every step. He realized that courage alone would not have sufficed. It was her intelligence, preparation, and moral strength that made her truly formidable. Together, they moved through the chamber like a pair of shadows, unnoticed and unstoppable. Their path led them to a heavy blast door, the final barrier between them and the outside world. The control panel glowed faintly, indicating that the door required a sequence to unlock. Liara examined it quickly, her fingers flying across the interface with skill born of careful study. Jalen watched in awe, recognizing a mastery of technology and strategy that rivaled his own. With a soft hiss, the door began to slide open. Beyond it lay the rocky terrain of Valoria, the fresh air of freedom waiting for them. But their escape was not complete. The sound of alarms blared suddenly, and mercenaries poured into the corridor behind them. Liara did not panic. Instead, she ran, guiding Jalen toward the exit with unwavering determination. As they sprinted across the rough terrain, the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon. The planet's jagged landscape stretched out before them, a mix of danger and opportunity. They dodged obstacles, leaped across crevices, and used the terrain to their advantage. The mercenaries were skilled, but Liara and Jalen's combined intelligence and agility allowed them to maintain their lead. Eventually, they reached a vantage point overlooking the open plains beyond Draxon. Liara paused, assessing the final stretch to safety. She knew that the mercenaries would pursue, but she also knew that the human they were protecting had the courage, skill, and adaptability to survive. Jalen looked at her, understanding the depth of the risk she had taken for him. It was more than bravery. It was a bond forged in the fires of danger, a shared resolve that neither would abandon the other. Together, they ran across the plains, leaving the mercenary stronghold behind. Each step was a victory, each breath a triumph over fear. The galaxy was vast, and danger was never far, but in that moment, the human and the princess proved that courage, intelligence, and loyalty could overcome even the greatest obstacles. As they finally reached a hidden outpost, safe for the moment, Liara allowed herself a small smile. Jalen, still catching his breath, looked at her with gratitude and newfound respect. Neither spoke immediately. Words were unnecessary. Their journey had just begun, but already trust and admiration had taken root. The galaxy watched silently as two unlikely allies, one human, one Valorian princess, showed that courage was not measured by species, but by the willingness to risk everything to protect another. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. Together, they were unstoppable. The plains of Valoria stretched endlessly under a sky painted with early morning light. The harsh terrain, with jagged rocks and sparse vegetation, was both a challenge and a refuge. Liara and Jalen ran across the rough ground, their breathing heavy but their resolve unwavering. Behind them, distant alarms and the clatter of mercenary boots echoed faintly across the land, a reminder that their escape was far from complete. Liara glanced at Jalen, her sharp eyes taking in his posture, his pace, his state of alertness. Despite being human, he adapted quickly to the alien terrain, leaping across jagged rocks and sliding down small slopes with skill and precision. She admired his determination. Humans often underestimated the dangers of other worlds, yet this one had faced them with a combination of courage and quick thinking that impressed even a Valorian princess. They slowed briefly near a ridge, using the rocks as cover. Liara crouched low and whispered, "We need to make it to the ridge line ahead. It will give us a better vantage and hide our movements from the mercenaries." Jalen nodded, trusting her instincts completely. He had seen enough of Valoria to understand that survival demanded strategy as much as courage. "Lead the way," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The ridge was a difficult climb, its surface sharp and unstable. Jalen felt the sting of cuts along his hands and arms but ignored it. Every step forward was a step closer to freedom. Liara moved like a shadow, her movements fluid and confident, her mind calculating every possibility, every risk. She glanced back once, ensuring Jalen was following and that no mercenaries had closed the distance. As they reached the top, the terrain opened into a wide plateau. From this vantage, they could see the mercenary stronghold in the distance, a fortress of metal and energy barriers, and the scattered forces pursuing them. The sight of it reminded Jalen of the danger they had narrowly escaped, and he tightened his grip on the energy blade Liara had given him, prepared for anything. Liara studied the plateau carefully. "We have to move through the canyon ahead. It's narrow, but it provides cover. If we can reach the far side before they organize, we'll have a chance to escape completely." They began the descent into the canyon, careful to avoid loose rocks and debris. The walls rose high on either side, casting long shadows that hid them from prying eyes. The quiet was deceptive, as the faint sounds of pursuit were carried by the wind. Jalen kept his senses sharp, scanning for traps, ambushes, or signs that their pursuers had anticipated their path. Halfway through the canyon, they encountered their first real obstacle, a barricade of energy barriers and metal panels erected by the mercenaries to slow any escape. Liara studied it for a moment, her mind racing with possibilities. "We'll have to disable it," she said. "I can handle the barriers, but you'll need to watch for patrols." Jalen nodded. He understood that this was a test of trust as much as skill. Liara worked quickly, using a small portable device to hack the barrier system. Sparks flew, and a faint hum filled the air as the panels began to retract. All the while, Jalen kept watch, alert for movement. When the last panel slid open, Liara gestured for him to follow, and they slipped through, disappearing into the shadowed canyon. The mercenaries were not far behind. A sudden blast of energy erupted from the canyon entrance as a patrol fired at them, missing by inches. Jalen dove behind a rock, using his human reflexes to avoid the beams. Liara fired a small, targeted device that created a temporary shield of energy, deflecting the attack and allowing them to move forward. Each step forward was a test of coordination, intelligence, and bravery. As they moved deeper, Jalen began to understand the full extent of Liara's courage. She was not reckless. Every action was calculated, every decision weighed against potential outcomes. Her bravery was different from human bravery. It was precise, thoughtful, and strategic. Yet, in combination with his own instincts and adaptability, they became a formidable team. Suddenly, the canyon opened into a wider clearing, and they came face to face with the mercenary commander. He was a towering alien, his multiple eyes scanning the terrain, his body armored in reflective plates. His voice boomed across the canyon, filled with anger and authority. "You cannot escape. No one ever does." Liara froze for only a second before motioning Jalen to follow her lead. "We will see about that," she said, her voice steady. She moved with purpose, drawing the commander's attention while Jalen used the terrain to flank him. The alien underestimated their coordination, assuming a human and a Valorian princess could not work seamlessly together. Jalen noticed the commander's rhythm, the slight delay between his attacks, and used it to his advantage. A quick movement to the side, a well-aimed strike with the energy blade, and the alien staggered. Liara took advantage of the moment, using a device that emitted a focused pulse to disrupt the commander's armor systems temporarily. Together they pressed forward, a combination of intelligence, agility, and courage that no single mercenary could match. The fight was intense. Energy blasts and sparks flew, the ground trembled under the force of the battle, and the sound of clashing technology echoed through the canyon. Yet through it all, Liara and Jalen moved as one, anticipating each other's moves, complementing each other's skills. Every attack was met with strategy, every obstacle overcome by careful planning and quick thinking. Finally, with a coordinated effort, they managed to incapacitate the mercenary commander. He collapsed, his systems overloaded, leaving the remaining mercenaries momentarily leaderless and confused. Liara and Jalen did not hesitate. They ran through the canyon, their path now clearer, though still dangerous. As they emerged from the canyon, the terrain shifted into rugged hills that extended toward the horizon. The mercenary forces were regrouping, but the distance and the natural cover of the hills provided a temporary advantage. Liara and Jalen moved swiftly, using every skill they possessed to stay ahead. Jalen could feel the exhilaration of freedom mingled with the adrenaline of danger, a sensation that reminded him why humans were always ready to face the impossible. Hours passed as they navigated the hills, each step a test of endurance, courage, and intellect. Liara guided Jalen through hidden paths, natural tunnels, and overgrown ridges, using the landscape to their advantage. She explained her choices briefly, teaching him as they moved, showing that courage was most effective when paired with knowledge and strategy. Despite the physical strain, their minds remained sharp. They avoided natural traps, such as unstable cliffs and hidden crevices, while anticipating the mercenaries' pursuit. Jalen began to admire Liara not only as a leader, but as a human ally would admire a peer. Her intelligence, bravery, and unwavering moral compass were awe-inspiring. He realized that in a galaxy filled with advanced technology and formidable adversaries, the qualities that truly made beings heroic were timeless: courage, cleverness, and loyalty. As night fell over the hills, they found temporary shelter in a rocky alcove overlooking a distant river. Liara tended to minor injuries, using Velorian techniques to treat Jalen's scrapes and bruises. She worked quickly and efficiently, a clear indication of her preparation and foresight. Jalen, in turn, shared some of his human survival skills, teaching her small techniques to move silently, spot danger, and maintain energy during long treks. The exchange of knowledge strengthened their bond, creating mutual respect built on trust and shared experience. They rested briefly, their bodies exhausted but their spirits unbroken. In the quiet moments, they spoke, sharing glimpses of their pasts. Liara spoke of her responsibilities as a princess, the expectations of her people, and her determination to lead with wisdom and compassion. Jalen shared stories of Earth, of human ingenuity, exploration, and the resilience that had carried his species across the stars. Despite their differences, they found common ground in courage, adaptability, and a commitment to protecting others. As dawn approached, Liara stood and surveyed the path ahead. The hills would lead them to a hidden Velorian outpost, a place of safety and respite. The mercenaries would continue to pursue, but with the experience they had gained and the bond they had formed, escape was possible. Jalen followed, his confidence renewed by the partnership they had built under fire. The journey ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, both understood that true strength was not measured by technology or weapons alone. It was measured by the courage to face impossible odds, the intelligence to outthink stronger foes, and the loyalty to protect one another no matter the risk. Together they had faced capture, evasion, and confrontation, and together they would face whatever came next. The canyon, the hills, and the mercenary stronghold lay behind them, fading into the distance as they moved toward the hope of safety. Every step forward was a triumph over fear, a testament to the indomitable spirit of both human and Velorian alike. They had survived the most dangerous trials of the escape, proving that courage and intelligence could overcome even the most formidable foes. And though the galaxy remained vast and filled with unseen dangers, the bond forged in the fires of this escape was unbreakable. Princess Liara and Commander Jalen had not only survived, they had demonstrated the timeless truth that together, beings of different worlds could achieve greatness, face insurmountable challenges, and emerge victorious against all odds. The hidden Velorian outpost lay nestled in a valley surrounded by jagged cliffs, its walls blending seamlessly with the rocky landscape. It was a place few outsiders had ever seen, a sanctuary for those who needed refuge from the dangers of Veloria's wild terrain. Princess Liara led Jalen toward it, her movements confident despite the exhaustion that tugged at every muscle. The journey had been long, treacherous, and unforgiving, but they had survived together, relying on each other's skills and instincts. Jalen followed closely, his human determination keeping pace with Liara's precision. He had faced countless dangers before, but the journey across Veloria, pursued by mercenaries and navigating unfamiliar terrain, had tested him in ways he had never imagined. Yet, through every challenge, he had learned to trust Liara completely. Her intelligence, courage, and unwavering commitment to his survival had impressed him deeply. He realized that heroism was not just about strength or skill. It was about loyalty, sacrifice, and the willingness to act when others would hesitate. The outpost gates loomed ahead, guarded by Valorian soldiers who recognized Liara immediately and bowed in respect. She waved them forward with a subtle gesture, signaling that their priority was safe passage rather than ceremony. Jalen followed, scanning the perimeter carefully. Though the outpost was a safe haven for now, the mercenaries were still out there, plotting their next move. Every step demanded caution, even in supposed safety. Inside the outpost, Liara guided Jalen to a secluded chamber where they could rest and tend to their injuries. Supplies were limited, but enough to heal minor cuts and bruises. Liara worked methodically, using Valorian techniques to clean and bandage wounds, while Jalen marveled at the combination of efficiency and care she demonstrated. For a human accustomed to quick improvisation, her methods were a revelation, each action precise, yet infused with thoughtfulness and compassion. As Jalen rested, Liara reviewed the situation carefully. She knew the mercenaries would not give up so easily. The commander they had faced was incapacitated, but his forces were still capable and relentless. Liara's mind worked quickly, planning contingencies and escape routes, analyzing the terrain and coordinating with the outpost's guards. Every possibility was considered, every risk weighed. She had learned that bravery without preparation was insufficient, that courage alone could not protect those she cared for. Night fell over the valley, and the outpost became a quiet fortress of shadows. Liara and Jalen sat by a dim light, sharing stories and strategies. She spoke of Valoria's history, of the responsibilities and challenges she faced as a princess, and of her desire to lead with wisdom and fairness. Jalen shared tales of Earth and humanity, of exploration, resilience, and the spirit that had driven humans to cross the stars. Despite their different worlds, they discovered shared values: courage, intelligence, loyalty, and the desire to protect life whenever possible. The quiet was broken suddenly by the distant hum of engines. Liara's sharp eyes detected movement on the cliffs above the valley. Mercenaries. They had tracked the escape and were preparing to attack. Liara rose immediately, her expression calm but resolute. She handed Jalen a small energy rifle, its design simple but effective. "We may have to fight," she said, "but we can do this together." Jalen nodded, his grip steady on the weapon. Though humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, he knew his adaptability and determination would be as important as the technology in his hands. Together, they moved to the outpost's defensive positions, coordinating with the guards to prepare for the impending assault. Every detail mattered: angles of attack, potential ambush points, and ways to use the terrain to their advantage. The mercenaries struck at first light. Shadows moved across the cliffs, and energy blasts streaked toward the outpost. Liara and Jalen worked seamlessly together. She directed the defenders, predicting enemy movements with uncanny precision, while Jalen used his human ingenuity to anticipate attacks, set traps, and exploit weaknesses in the enemy's approach. Their combined efforts created a defensive strategy that was both innovative and highly effective. The battle raged through the valley. Mercenaries attempted to scale cliffs, cross open ground, and breach the outpost's walls, but Liara and Jalen countered every move. The humans' quick thinking allowed for rapid improvisation, while Liara's strategic mind anticipated the mercenaries' tactics before they could be executed. Every energy blast deflected, every ambush countered, strengthened the bond between them. They were no longer merely rescuer and rescued. They were partners in battle, a combined force of courage, skill, and determination. At one point, a small squad of mercenaries managed to break through one of the outer gates. Liara and Jalen responded instantly. Using a combination of human reflexes and Valorian precision, they maneuvered to flank the intruders. Liara's energy blade struck with calculated force, disabling 2 mercenaries, while Jalen's quick shot with the rifle took down another. Within moments, the squad was neutralized, demonstrating how perfectly their styles complemented one another. The mercenary commander, having regained partial control, appeared at the head of a larger force, his eyes glowing with fury. He underestimated the bond and skill of the duo, assuming that the human and princess could be separated, disoriented, and defeated. But Liara had anticipated his movements, and Jalen had learned from every encounter, adapting rapidly. Together they created a trap, using the terrain, timing, and their knowledge of the enemy's psychology. The final confrontation was fierce. The commander unleashed a barrage of energy, attempting to overwhelm them. Liara dodged with agility and precision, countering with strikes that disrupted his armor and destabilized his footing. Jalen, taking advantage of the brief openings, used his human ingenuity to exploit structural weaknesses in the mercenaries' technology. A well-aimed strike caused the commander's energy device to malfunction, giving Liara the chance to disable him completely. With their leader incapacitated, the remaining mercenaries faltered. Confusion spread through their ranks, giving Liara and Jalen the upper hand. They pressed their advantage, directing the outpost's defenders to secure the remaining threats. Within hours, the battle was over. The mercenaries retreated, leaving the valley and outpost in safety. Exhausted but victorious, Liara and Jalen surveyed the aftermath. The outpost had suffered minor damage, but no lives were lost. The mercenaries had underestimated them both. The humans' adaptability and courage, combined with the princess's intelligence and leadership, had proven unstoppable. The victory was not just physical, it was moral. They had shown that courage, strategy, and loyalty could triumph over brute force, that heroism was not a matter of species but of character. As the sun set over the valley, Liara and Jalen stood together, looking at the distant horizon. There was a sense of peace, earned through struggle and danger, but also the understanding that the galaxy was vast and challenges would always remain. They had survived one of the greatest trials of their lives, but their journey had taught them lessons that would endure far beyond this battle. Liara turned to Jalen, her expression softening. "You are not just a human explorer," she said. "You are a friend, an ally, and someone I would trust with my life." Jalen smiled, a mixture of relief and respect in his eyes. "And you are not just a princess," he replied. "You are a leader, a strategist, and someone who risks everything for what is right. I've learned more from you than I ever imagined I could." The bond they had formed in the fires of danger was unbreakable. It was a partnership built on trust, courage, and mutual respect. They had faced capture, pursued the mercenaries, and fought through overwhelming odds together. The galaxy had witnessed the bravery of one human and the loyalty of one princess, and the story of their actions would inspire others for generations. In the following days, the outpost became a center of planning and recovery. Liara coordinated with Valorian authorities to ensure that the mercenaries could not return, while Jalen assisted in strategizing defenses and sharing his knowledge of human tactics. Their combined experience strengthened the outpost, turning it into a beacon of hope and security for those who might face danger in the future. Liara and Jalen also found moments of quiet reflection. They spoke of the future, of exploration, and of the possibility of cooperation between their peoples. Humans and Valorians, despite differences in biology and culture, had discovered that they shared core values: courage, intelligence, and loyalty. These values, more than technology or weapons, were what truly defined heroism in the galaxy. When it came time for Jalen to continue his journey as an explorer, Liara escorted him to his vessel. The farewell was simple but meaningful. They had fought together, learned from each other, and survived against odds that would have defeated many others. Their bond was not one of obligation, but of mutual respect and shared triumph. As Jalen's ship lifted off the valley, he looked back at Liara standing on the ridge, the sun casting her silhouette in golden light. He felt gratitude, admiration, and a sense of kinship that crossed the boundaries of worlds. Liara watched the ship disappear into the stars, her heart filled with hope and pride. She had kept her promise to ensure that no human would die while she had the power to prevent it. The story of their escape spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Humans were no longer just curiosities or distant legends. They were beings of courage, adaptability, and resilience. Valorians learned that heroism was not measured by birth or status, but by the willingness to act, to protect, and to persevere. And for Liara and Jalen, the experience cemented a friendship and partnership that would endure, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, courage and loyalty could shine brighter than any star. Together, they had faced the impossible, overcome tremendous danger, and emerged victorious. The human and the princess had proven that bravery, cleverness, and morality were universal forces, capable of inspiring hope across galaxies. And in the end, it was not the technology, the weapons, or the strength of armies that mattered most. It was the courage of individuals willing to stand for what was right, no matter the cost. As the first stars appeared in Valoria's night sky, the valley grew silent, a testament to the triumph of determination and intelligence. And somewhere in that vast galaxy, a human and a princess shared a bond forged in adversity, a bond that would carry them into future adventures, challenges, and triumphs yet to come. The human was captured, but the princess wouldn't let him die.